Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good evening. You're watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. 30 people are killed in attacks in Sinai, and Ansar Bayt al-Maqdis group claimed responsibility. Scores of people are killed in attacks by Daesh militants against Kurdish Peshmerga forces in Kirkuk. And with the aim to preserve the Arabic language, permanent UN delegation to World Trade Organization in Geneva celebrates Arabic Language World Day. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi cut short a visit to Ethiopia for an African Union summit today after the killing of at least 30 security personnel in the Sinai Peninsula by militants. The 4 separate attacks on security forces in North Sinai last night were among the bloodiest in years. Most of the casualties occurred in the bombing of a military hotel and base in the heavily guarded provincial capital, Al-Arish. Security sources in Sinai said at least 5 men were in critical condition and the death toll was likely to rise. 2 children, one of them 6 months old, died today from wounds suffered last night as soldiers fought militants in the village near Sheikh Zuweid, close to the Gaza Strip. A group called Ansar Bayt al-Maqdis claimed responsibility for the attacks. A car bomb exploded outside an empty, closed hotel near police headquarters in the oil-rich Kirkuk, where both the Kurdish troops and the city's security force have been trying to rout the militants from Daesh groups. 2 people were wounded in the blast. 3 gunmen subsequently took positions inside the hotel located in the city center, triggering a firefight with the Kurds and the police. Officials later said the gunmen were all killed after they were confronted. Also today, clashes with Daesh militants killed a senior Kurdish military commander and 8 of his fighters just outside Kirkuk. The casualties are a heavy setback for the Iraqi Kurds, who have been at the forefront of the battle against the group, which has captured a third of both Iraq and Syria since its blitz last year. Jordan's army said today that state agencies were working to get information on Air Force pilot Mu'adh al-Qasaba held by Daesh militants after a deadline passed for a proposed prisoner swap, but offered no new word on his fate. Jordan said it was still holding Sajida al-Rishawi, Iraqi woman prisoner, as a deadline passed for the release set by the Daesh militants who threatened to kill a Jordanian pilot unless she was handed over by sunset. The fate of a Japanese hostage led by the same group was also uncertain. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said every effort was being made to secure the release of journalist Kenji Goto. The Daesh militants shot down a military plane belongs to Syrian army after it was shot at its Damascus countryside, where it was flying at a low altitude and targeting positions belonging to Daesh. Fighting between the Syrian arm of Al-Qaeda and Western-backed rebels in northern Syria spread from Aleppo province into the neighboring Idlib today. Clashes began yesterday when the Al-Qaeda Syria wing, the Nusra Front, seized positions from the Hazm movement west of Aleppo, threatening one of the few remaining pockets of the non-jihadist insurgency. Al-Hazm officials said by telephone clashes had spread to Idlib and that his group had retaken some areas previously controlled by Nusra. The African Union has endorsed a Western African plan to set up a regional task force of 7,500 to fight Boko Haram militants, a vital step towards securing UN Security Council backing neighbors Nigeria, Cameroon, Niger, Chad and Benin agreed earlier this month to call on the African Union, AU, to seek UN Security Council support for their plan to take on insurgents who are fighting to create a state in northern Nigeria. The African Union appoints Zimbabwe's President Robert Mugabe its new chairman at a summit in Addis Ababa. The 90-year-old succeeds Mauritanian President Mohamed Ould Abdelaziz in the post, which rotates annually between the 54 AU countries. Shells hit a cultural center and a trolley bus in the eastern Ukrainian city of Donetsk today, killing at least 6 people. The past week in eastern Ukraine has seen the worst fighting since a ceasefire agreement 5 months ago. Meanwhile, Ukrainian separatist officials say peace talks on the Ukrainian crisis due to take place in the Belarusian capital Minsk today had been called off and blamed Kyiv for avoiding a dialogue before flying back to Moscow. Rebel officials Danish Pishlain said Russian-backed separatists were prepared to continue an offensive and take control of eastern Ukraine's 2 main regions if hostilities resumed with government forces. European Union foreign ministers extended existing sanctions against Russia yesterday, holding off on tighter economic measures for now, but winning the support of the new left-leaning government of Greece, whose position had been in doubt. The ministers agreed to extend until September travel bans and asset freezes imposed last year that had been due to expire. They also agreed a list of names of additional people who could be targeted with sanctions when they meet again on February the 9th. Yesterday's emergency meeting had been called after rebels launched an advance last week, dissolving a 5-month-old ceasefire. While Greece, Italy, Austria did call for the decision on tighter sanctions to be delayed, Britain and the Baltic states wanted a clear commitment to imposing new sanctions quickly. An Afghan soldier killed 3 U.S. contractors and wounded a 4th yesterday at Kabul's military airport. Taliban claimed responsibility for the attack, saying a militant infiltrator had carried it out. The international force in Afghanistan confirmed the shooting took place on yesterday evening. It also confirmed that 1 Afghan had been killed, but it did not specify that he was the attacker. They were part of a new international resolute support mission involving a small contingent of about 12,000, mostly U.S. troops, started on January the 1st and is to focus on training Afghanistan's national security force. Still to come in our news bulletin. London still has thousands of gas lamps, some dating as far back to 1814. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. The Sultan's permanent delegation to the World Trade Organization, affiliated to the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, organized in cooperation with Global Digital Networks Language Foundation, a celebration to mark the World Day of the Arabic Language at the WTO's headquarters in Geneva. The celebration came as an emphasis on the importance of multilingualists among diplomatic forums and international organizations in Geneva, and to enrich, preserve the Arabic language and spread it among the digital society through the innovative and multi-language global digital network language system. His Excellency Abdullah bin Nasser Al Rahbi, Ambassador of the Sultanate as its permanent representative to the United Nations and other international organizations, presided over the celebration. It included many activities such as the presentation of an information technology innovative and multi-language system that contributes to the empowerment of all people of the world to have access to information and knowledge and sharing them in their mother tongue, and to pursue to remove language barriers within the digital society. His Excellency Abdullah bin Nasser Al Rahbi, Ambassador of the Sultanate and its permanent representative to the United Nations at Geneva, said that such efforts in allocating a sum of money to establish translation centers as it in Egypt, number of Gulf Cooperation Council countries and Maghrebi countries will contribute in spreading the Arabic Islamic civilization in better and deeper methods, as well as to open colleges and institutes for teaching Arabic language to non-native speakers, as it is in the Sultanate of Oman. Sultan Qaboos College for Teaching Arabic Language to non-native speakers was established 6 years ago. Within the outcomes of the practical study to develop coastal women products in the Sultanate, the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries Wealth organized at Lulu's Shopping Center in the Wilaya of Aboshar an exhibition for promoting and marketing products of coastal women. The exhibition included a number of traditional and developed products. The participants took training courses in preparing food and increase its additional value. The exhibition aimed to get acquainted with the consumer opinions and to get acquainted with types of products which consumer requests for. In order to instill love of group work in youths, Al Rida Village Youth in the Wilaya of Mudaibi organized an open day to introduce their pioneer role in the society. The event of the Open Day developed skills and the talents of youth. The Open Day included a number of programs and activities, namely cleaning campaigns. A small team of London's last lamp lighters went the mechanism and polished the glass to make sure the remaining of 1,500 gas lamps still give off their soft yellow glow. More details in the following report.
As the sun sets over London, thousands of electric lights flood the city. But although the light pollution obscures a view of the stars, tourists and residents should still look upwards. And they may be surprised to learn that the capital still has 1,500 gas lamps, some dating as far back as 1814.
The gas lamp is a much softer, more mellow lighting. It's a calming light, a nice soft yellow colour. And as opposed to the electrical light in the background there, you can see it's a much brighter, much more harsh light.
So what the guys, when they come along, have to do?
A team of just 5 lamplighters from British Gas maintain the lamps by hand. A mechanical timer controls the flow to these silk mantles, which light up off a pilot light, becoming white hot. The mantles are coated in lime oxide, and their early use in London theatres sparked the phrase, "in the limelight."
They clean the glass, replace mantles and relight any pilots that tend to blow out. The clocks, once they're fully wound, last for about 2 weeks. So they've all got about 300 lamps each to deal with. So by the time they've gone round, come back to the original lamp, it's all ready to be wound again.
When the gas lamps were first introduced 200 years ago, they were a marvel of modern technology, bringing light and relative safety to London's dark and dangerous streets. An oasis from London's light pollution, St James's Park near Buckingham Palace is fully lit with gas. It's one of the few places that people can still imagine that Dickensian atmosphere.
Gives you a bit of a feel of what it might have been like back in the 1800s when it was just gas that was lighting the streets of London.
The gas lamps have survived the arrival of electricity and the bombing of London during the Blitz, and they're now protected by English heritage.
1V and the crown here.
Nowadays, the main threat is the traffic, and with vans and lorries much taller than horse-drawn carriages, many of the gas lanterns have been extended upwards. At a time when budget cuts have seen some councils switch off street lighting in some areas to save money, it seems these gas lights will keep on burning.
Now for the general weather forecast. Clear skies will prevail over the Sultanate with chances of low clouds and fog in the governorates of South Sharqiya, Worcester, Dhofar and coastal areas overlooking Sea of Oman. Winds will be northeasterly to easterly light to moderate. Seas will be slight to moderate along the southeastern coast with a maximum wave height of 2 meters, and it will be slight along the rest of the coast with a maximum wave height of 1.25 meters. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. 30 people are killed in attacks in Sinai, and Ansar Beit al-Maqdis group claimed responsibility. Scores of people are killed in attacks by Daesh militants against Kurdish Peshmerga forces in Kirkuk. And with the aim to preserve the Arabic language, permanent UN delegation to World Trade Organization in Geneva celebrates Arabic Language World Day. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the studio and the newsroom, it's good night.